We're always told that hard work is the key to success. But what if our entire education system is built on a lie? Today, we're diving into the philosophy of a principal who says our obsession with scores is creating a generation of brilliant but totally empty graduates. He's asking a simple, really radical question. What's the real point of all this pressure?
So, this whole thing really kicked off for Principal Huang Chun during a pretty alarming job interview. He's talking to a graduate from a top university who's applying for a really low-stress admin job. And when Huang asked him, is this really your dream? The graduate just flat out admitted, back then, I had no ideas of my own. All I had were scores and my parents' expectations.
And look, this isn't just a one-off story. He sees it as a symptom of a crisis he calls educational involution. It's this high-stakes race where everyone is running as fast as they can just to stay in the exact same place. We push students to their absolute breaking point, but for what? Principal Wang believes we've confused just raw effort with actual progress. And the result is graduates who look amazing on paper, but are completely hollow inside. This question right here is the absolute heart of his philosophy. He's challenging the basic assumption that more hours, more drills, and more pressure automatically lead to success. He's basically saying that this wisdom we've all inherited, a lot of the time, it's just a broken tradition we're too afraid to question, which, of course, leads to the biggest question of all. How do we possibly fix it? Okay, so here's how we're going to break down his approach. We'll look at three core pillars. First, identifying what he calls the fake effort trap. Second, embracing professionalism over just brute force. And third, finding the courage to protect students. And after all that, we'll get into a simple action plan this inspires for every single one of us. So let's start with part one, the fake effort trap. Because to fix the problem, you first have to admit you're in it. And Huang has this powerful name for it, collective self-comforting fake effort. It's this crazy, vicious cycle that feels productive, but is actually holding everybody back. So what exactly is fake effort? Well, it's a performance. The student can say, hey, I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and I studied till 11 at night, so you can't blame me. The teacher can say, I held extra classes all weekend, so you can't blame me. And the principal can say, our school never takes a holiday, so don't you dare blame me. Everybody gets to say, I did my part, but they all avoid the much, much harder question. Was my part actually effective? It's basically one giant collective pat on the back. I mean, this obsession with just time on task is, when you think about it, kind of absurd. Huang compares it to this old fable about a cruel landlord who would fake a rooster's crow in the middle of the night just to wake up his workers early. And did it get more work done? Of course not. It just made them miserable. Forcing kids out of bed at dawn to read under a street lamp, it exhausts them, it makes them hate learning, and it's just profoundly inefficient. And this quote from him, wow, it just hits the nail on the head. Unskilled dedication, this fake effort, it actually does more harm than good. It burns everybody out, and most importantly, it hurts the students. So, okay, if just trying harder isn't the answer, then what is? Which brings us right to part two, the power of professionalism. See, if brute force is what the amateur does, the professional has a different toolkit. Huang's answer is simple but totally radical. Professionalism. It means treating education less like some kind of mystical art and more like a science with rules that you have to respect. And this slide right here, this is a huge mindset shift. The amateur's mindset is all about more time, more classes, more pressure. But the professional, they're focused on better teaching methods, higher quality instruction, and actually respecting the rules of learning and, human biology, like the fact that we all need sleep. And this isn't just theory for him. He actually does this. He tells a story about a teacher whose lessons just weren't very efficient. Now, the typical playbook would say, okay, add more tutoring sessions. But he did the exact opposite. He reduced that teacher's class load. It's this totally counterintuitive move that forced them to stop relying on sheer volume and start focusing on making the few hours they did have incredibly effective. And I love this quote because it's him turning the lens on himself. He asks, if my only tool is to just pile on more time, am I really a professional? He's saying real leadership isn't about just cracking the whip. Literally anyone can do that. A true professional finds ways to get better results within the constraints. It's about expertise, not just enforcement.
But here's the thing. Being a professional is great, but it doesn't work in a vacuum. It needs the right environment, one that's free from all this constant crushing pressure. And that leads us to the final pillar, part 3, the courage to protect. The leader's most important job might just be to be a guardian. His point is that, in this whole system, it's the students and teachers who are actually the most vulnerable. They don't have the power to change the rules. The real power, and with it the responsibility, is with the people in charge. So a principal's job isn't to just harvest good test scores. It's to be a guardian, a shield that protects everyone from the damaging pressure coming from the outside. And again, he's not just talking the talk. He puts this into practice by doing things that, in today's world, feel totally radical. He actually follows the legal rules. School starts at 8 a.m., not a second earlier. Weekends and holidays, they're for rest, period. And he actively fights back against that immense pressure to measure his school's worth by a single number. And this story just perfectly sums up that courage. So, some official comes to visit and asks the big question. How many of your students are getting into the top university, Tsinghua? And instead of giving a number, he just says, the principal of this school didn't get into Tsinghua. If a student does, it's because they are excellent. Boom! With that one sentence, he just completely flips the script. He deflects the pressure and gives the credit right back to where it belongs, the student.
Okay, so what does all this mean for us? This isn't just a philosophy for school principals. It's for parents, it's for managers, it's for anyone who's in a position of influence, because we can all be guardians in our own little worlds. So let's get into part 4, your action plan.
All right, first things first, we got to be real about what's driving all this pressure. Huang says that when he has really deep, honest talks with parents, the obsession over that extra 10 points on a test, it almost always boils down to one simple, hard-to-admit reason: their own face, their social reputation. It's more about their own ego than what's actually best for their kid.
So here's a simple 3-step action plan inspired by his whole philosophy that you can start using tonight. Number 1, just observe. Look for the difference between real learning, that spark of curiosity, actual engagement, and fake learning, which is just tiredly going through the motions. Number 2, examine your motives. Ask yourself, honestly, how much of my desire for their success is really for them, and how much of it is for me? And number 3, be a challenger. Find one "we've always done it this way" rule in your house or on your team, and just question it.
And that really brings us to the final thought here, and it's a big one. The simplest way to start making this shift is to change how we define a good day for our kids, our employees, or even for ourselves. And it all starts with the questions we ask. So what if tonight, instead of the usual "is your homework done?" you tried something different? What if you asked, what was the most interesting thing that happened today? See, when you change the question, you change the entire focus, from a task that needs to be completed to a life that's actually being lived. You stop being a supervisor of fake effort, and you start becoming a guardian of real curiosity, passion, and joy. And isn't that what this is all supposed to be about anyway?